Hey, Sam, guess what? Sam? Sam. Oh, boy. What's going on, Caniacs? This is Andrew Miller from the Caniac Report. First ever solo episode. Sam is taking a well-deserved vacation. Let's get right into it. First, as always, we have a great partnership with SeatGeek. Use the code Caniac Report to get $20 off any purchase of a ticket, be it to a hockey game, concert, comedy show, whatever your heart desires. As always, if you're on YouTube, like and subscribe. If you're on any of your streaming services, be sure to follow us and give us a rating. All of those truly do help us out. Let's get right into it. We're going to get into the NHL news, figure post-trade deadline, all that kind of stuff is in the past. Coming down the home stretch here, let's take a quick gander around the league and see where everyone stands with about 15 to 14 games left collectively. Obviously, we have our Canes, first place in the Metro at 92 points. We created a little bit of distance last night against the Penguins, who are now at 84. Islanders with a point behind them at 83, all with 68 games played. Over in the Atlantic, we got the Buffalo Sabres. Yes, those Buffalo Sabres at 90 points, 68 games played. Tampa's behind them with 86, but have 2 games in hand. Montreal with 84, with 1 game in hand on the Sabres. Looking at the wild card, Boston and Detroit share the first and second wild card spots respectively. 82 points for each of them. And then it's an absolute gauntlet for the teams chasing them. We have the Columbus Blue Jackets, who just recently picked up a victory against Carolina, which we will get into, with 81 points, 67 games played. The Columbus Blue Jackets, 6-0-4 in their last 10. I think all of the comments we were seeing on Twitter about the Canes losing to a bottom feeder, we may have to revisit that. The Columbus Blue Jackets are looking like the real deal. Ottawa Senators, 77 points. Philadelphia and Washington both at 76, though Washington already at 69 games played, a little bit further back. We look out west, we got the Colorado Avalanche, who as of now still seem to be the clear favorites going into ththese playoffs at 98 points. Just behind them, though, at 96 points, though with 1 more game played, the Dallas Stars, though Dallas 8-1-1 in their last 10, rapidly closing ground on the red-hot Avalanche. Minnesota rounds out the Central with 90 points, 69 games played. And then we go out west to the Pacific. Easily the worst division in hockey this year. Not to say it's void of talent, but you have the Ducks, 78 points. Oilers, 77 points. Vegas, the 3-7 in their last 10 games. Vegas Golden Knights at 76 points. The wild card spot, we got the Utah Mammoth also with 76 points. And then it's just kind of a sea of mid fighting for that final wild card spot out west. We got the Seattle Kraken currently holding at 71 points. The LA Kings at 71. The Sharks, who I'm pulling for because I would love to see Celebrini in the playoffs, at 70. Nashville at 69. Winnipeg at 67. And somehow still in the race for all of this, the team we all thought would probably make a bunch of moves and try to ship it down to the Bolts. The St. Louis Blues at 65 points, only 3 games back of a wild card spot. Can you believe it? But that's what we're looking at going into the home stretch. Obviously, for us Canes fans, we like where the boys sit right now. But as we saw last night, Pittsburgh's no joke. As we saw the other night, Columbus is a very solid team, though not pushing for our playoff spot. But I got to say, man, I think that's a tough matchup. So I'll be watching for that to see if that's going to be our first round opponent, because compared to, say, the Bruins and Detroit, Ottawa, Philly, Washington, for some reason, man, the Blue Jackets have always just kind of seemed to give us a hard time. And Kirill Marchenko is a known cane killer. And don't even get me started on Charlie Coyle. I don't care if he's not wearing the spoked bee of Boston. He's got a reputation for just absolutely running us in the playoffs. So now we're going to move on to some fallout that continues to come from the Racco Gudis hit. We're not going to spend too much time on this, only because I've made my opinions on this very clear, and we talked about it for a good 20 minutes in the last episode. But you had Connor McDavid expressing his concerns at the lack of transparency from the player safety department. And if McDavid's concerned, I think all of us are well within our rights to echo his concerns. He's obviously the face of, never mind the NHL, he's the face of the sport right now and probably will be for many years. Peros, George Peros, the head of the player safety department, came out and defended his department, comparing it to a team full of veterans. And I'll give him some credit. He acknowledged that player safety is in kind of a tough spot, especially when it comes to dealing with the union, because the union is going to be pushing for the player who's going to be losing money, which in this case would be Gudis. And then it puts the player safety department in kind of a no-win spot. But that's, in my opinion, that's the job you signed up for. I still think that 5 games for what Gudis did was certainly not enough. But if you want to hear more of my thoughts on that, I recommend you go check out our last episode. It's Sam and I dug into that pretty deep. Moving on to Canes news. Speaking of making waves with player safety, reports of our GM, Eric Tulsky, causing some waves at the GM meetings, citing that the NHL has not held up to their commitment to crack down on headshots. It's been hard to get a super valid source on this one. Maybe things have come out that I have missed, but Twitter was absolutely lit up with this story last night about how Tulsky apparently brought this up, much to the dismay, shall we say, of Gary Bettman. I hope this is true, man. I love that whether it's Dundon, Tulsky, or really just this organization in general, they've never been afraid under this regime to make waves in the league. It's been known that, Dundon's not necessarily the most popular guy amongst the other owners. He wants to do things his own way. And, the Hurricanes, ever since we became a team, it's been kind of a thorn in the side of the good old boys of the sport. So I hope that all of the stories we're seeing are valid. I think Tulsky being the guy to lead the charge on this makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of career hockey guys that hold these GM spots, some of which I think only have a job anymore because the NHL is so hesitant to bring in new blood. We can get into that at a different time. Want to keep this short and to the point. We have more exciting things to talk about, but shout out to Tulsky for causing waves if this is true. We had Sebastian Aho, our boy Fishy, 700 points. Congrats to him. It's been such a treat watching him go from this kid who cracked the league as a rookie to now we're watching him develop into what I think is the clear-cut future captain of this team, and if not already, the emotional leader. So congrats to Fishy on 700 points. Seth Jarvis with a $5,000 fine for his double minor against the Blue Jackets. 2 double minors against the Blue Jackets. It's hard to... I'm not sure where I stand on this one, because on the one hand, it was a reckless play, but we see high sticks like that happen all the time, and a 4-minute minor is usually all that comes from it. I'm guessing because it was 2 of them in the same game, $5,000 fine, just to kind of send a message to Jarvis that you got to be a little more careful. We know Jarvis isn't a dirty player. He has 0 history. The league clearly took that into account. And that wraps it up for news, both around the league and amongst the Canes. We will get into the 2 games between Columbus and Pittsburgh right after this ad break.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is built for the fastest game on ice. With player props and live betting, every shift, every shot, every save gives you options to get in on the game with DraftKings Sportsbook. New customers, bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN to turn $5 into $300 in bonus bets if your bet wins. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY. Connecticut, call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. On behalf of Blue Hill Casino in Kansas, wager tax pass-through may apply in Illinois. 21 plus in most states. Void in Ontario. Restrictions apply. Bet must win to receive bonus bets which expire in 7 days. Minimum odds required. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Limited time offer. Copyright 2026. NHL. All rights reserved.
Welcome back. So we have two games to cover. One that was a exciting victory for the Hurricanes, one a loss that I think we should all just kind of flush it and forget. Let's get into that one first, shall we? The Columbus Blue Jackets, like I said, 6-0-4. It's not the prettiest record, but they're racking up points consistently and making a push for the playoffs. Maybe something that us Canes fans should be wary of. You have the game starting off. You have two first-period power play goals by Mason Marchment and Charlie Coyle. That Charlie Coyle goal came off of the 4-minute double minor, which we mentioned earlier that Jarvis received a $5,000 fine from. I'm guessing it was more the second one that weighed into that decision, but 2-in-1 game, I think we can live with the league feeling like they need to make a message about that. But yeah, the Canes go down 2. Second period starts, and the new guy, Nick Deslauriers, no shock to anyone who was watching the pregame. We saw Deslauriers and Olivier talking before the game. Couple of known fighters, probably laughing it up before the game started. Hey, help me get associated with this new crowd. And kudos to Olivier for answering the bell. And decent fight, though. You know, staged fights like that, I get it. They're fun. And I understand in this situation how first game, he knows why he's brought here. You know, he had to do something to make an impact on the team. So we'll chalk it up to we'll call it showmanship from both players. But as far as a real impact, I don't really think so. But that being said, the one goal from the Hurricanes came shortly after that. You have Andrei Svechnikov showing off his speed by managing to muscle past the defender and get to the front of the net and score. That comes off of an excellent pass from Nick Ehlers and a secondary assist by Nikishin. And that would be just about all there was good to talk about from the Hurricanes, because the next incident of discussion here would be that goal that put the Blue Jackets back up by 2. It's Dan Heinen scoring over a, let's call it a blatant missed trip that I don't know how the refs missed. You know, granted, Bussy maybe could have made more of an effort to get back to the net quicker. I think he assumed, which I don't entirely blame him, that was going to be a penalty. Seemed pretty obvious, you know, skate on skate. You can't take a guy out like that. That's a trip all day. You know, some people have been arguing whether it was goaltender interference or not. He's behind the net. He's out of the trapezoid, but a goalie, even when you're out of the blue paint, they are still given some protected status, and you can't run into a guy like that. Never mind just, you know, borderline slew foot him. I'm not calling the play dirty, but that's what took him out. So 3-1, and it just kind of went downhill from there. You know, the Canes never really seemed to recover from that. I think when Jarvis goes in the third period, Jarvis gets his second 4-minute minor. You can just tell, like, Jarvis not that kind of player, not the type to want to cause injuries. You can just tell it was getting to his head a little bit. But you have Matechuk and Olivier, the guy who answered the bell with Deslauriers. They both score in the third period, 5-1. Not a whole lot to take from that game. I'm going to reference an interview I saw with Nathan McKinnon where they had a similar game, and they asked him, are you mad about a game like this, or do you flush it? The answer is both. And I think we, for the most part, saw the Canes lean into that against the Pittsburgh Penguins, in which Jordan Martinhook, the whipping boy on Twitter of late, opens the scoring with a shorthanded goal off of a beautiful breakout pass by Jordan Stahl, set up by Jacob Slavin. Canes now 7 shorthanded goals on the season. I believe that's 4th in the NHL off the top of my head. The penalty kill, though, it hasn't been up to the standard that we've come to expect really through the entire Brendan Moore tenure. It creates scoring chances. It always has, but we're starting to see that come through a bit more. I think that's one of the things to really watch down the home stretch, especially as, now that we have Slavin back, as Ghost comes back to take some of the ice time away from some of the other defensemen. How can this penalty kill regain form? Because we've seen the power play for the most part play a lot better. Obviously Spetch having this renaissance of a season, and Nick Ehlers just proving that he was made in a lab to be a hurricane have absolutely helped with that. Never mind the power play merchant that is Jordan Stahl, apparently. Going on to the second, though, you have Sidney Crosby scoring a goal that comes off of an assist from Ricard Raquel and Erik Karlsson. This goal I didn't really like, only because Jalen Chatfield, usually very solid, never questioned the effort, maybe goes into the boards a little bit soft on the retrieval, and it allows Ricard Raquel to send the pass out into the slot. Crosby has a few seconds to make a move, and I don't care who's in net. If Crosby has time and space to find a spot that close to the net, it's going in. But nonetheless, 1-1 Pittsburgh. That gets followed shortly after by Jackson Blake scoring off of Hall and Ehlers. And from there, we go into the third period, and what through two periods was a tightly contested game between two teams obviously feeling each other out, number one, number two in the Metro Division. Third period, all chaos breaks loose, and we have just pond hockey for 20 minutes. And it was as frustrating as some of the goals were. I think it was one of the more entertaining periods we've had all season. You have Erik Karlsson kicking things off, power play, clap bomb, traffic in front. Freddie, I don't think really I ever saw it, which I do think that's a theme on a few of the goals here. You have Taylor Hall answering from a beautiful pass by Jackson Blake. That second line, man, when they're cooking, I think they are going to be maybe the X factor of this whole postseason for Carolina. We know you're probably going to see Stahl and Aho's line being matched up against the other team's top line, depending on the game situation. That leaves Stankoven, Hall, and Blake, assuming that line stays together in the postseason. You're probably going to see them going against other teams' third, maybe even fourth line. So I think as long as they can overcome their issue with size and not get muscled and not be a collective minus in spite of their offensive abilities, that second line, man, that might be the true X factor for this team. After that, you have Brian Rust putting the Penguins back on top. Bit of a whiff of a shot by Jacob Slavin. Rust takes advantage, shows you why he's been able to stay in the league for so long. Outraces Slavin to the net. Freddie probably wants that goal back. I have a hard time blaming a goalie too much on a breakaway, because even a guy like Rust, obviously twilight of his career, these guys all know how to locate their shots. I would like to see Freddie not get beaten that far over in his 5-hole area. It went under the pads, not through his legs, but directly under the pad. So that's a split-second difference. You tip the cap to Rust on it, I guess, but Freddie, that's one you probably want to have back. Stankoven then answers, power play goal. You see Ehlers taking the puck Ehlers take the puck behind the net. Looks like he's going to wrap it around to the other side. Instead, last seconds, kicks it out to the slot. Stankoven scores, kind of comparable to how the Crosby goal was scored, though with much more chaos going on in front of the net. From there, Karlsson scores again. Erik Karlsson had his fingerprints all over this game. But this goal in particular, I think, really shows why, even though sometimes people question his commitment to the defensive side of being a defenseman, offensively, he might be one of the greater players that we've seen. Just absolutely dances Aho out of his shoes, brings the puck to the center blue line. He's got double screens in front and just finds the top left corner. There were a few of the goals tonight that I don't think Freddie had much of a chance on. If there's going to be a great screen in front of you, even better shot, you're just hoping that you can guess and time it correctly. But if the shot's going to go to a corner like that, unless you're committing to leaving a whole half of your net open, that puck's going to go in. Not much Anderson can do there. Shortly after, we have a turnover on the rush, just like I was saying about that second line. They can create, but this is the issue. Sometimes whether it's because they're small, whether it's because for as bright of a future as they have, Blake and Stankoven, both still younger guys, they commit a turnover. Pittsburgh takes it the other way. Mantha finds Kindle. Bing, bang, boom. There's the lead for Pittsburgh again. And at this point, I think us Canes fans are kind of throwing our hands up, being like, this is just going to be one of those games, whether the goals are Freddie's or not. We just can't get a stop. But Keandre Miller comes through, and sometimes he gets some puck luck. Put the puck on net, see what happens. If that's not a Hurricanes goal, I don't know what is. But that makes it a 5-5 game, and we go to overtime. Now, 2/3 of this equation you expect to hear. Aho and Jarvis. The Aho and Jarvis show in overtime, but it's the goal scorer, Sean Walker. If you told me you had Sean Walker as your overtime hero, I would call you a liar, but love to see it, man. I think Walker, we talk about players that are underrated by the league. I think Sean Walker might be underrated by all of us, myself included. I think he has been just an absolute fit for this team. And if you go back to the start of the season when we were just plagued with the injury bug, Sean Walker really kept this thing afloat. So you like seeing guys like that get rewarded for their efforts. And even though it's a game where I think Carolina is going to have a lot to go and study the tape on, you take the win, you take a little bit more separation from the Penguins. And if nothing else, these are the games you look at where the team hopefully can rally around the idea of it doesn't matter if it's a 2-1 game or a 6-5 game. However the game's going to go, we have the talent and the structure that if we stay in the fight, that we can win. So all in all, when you look at these two games, I think tale of two games, back-to-backs are always kind of tricky. It's interesting that they seem to have more energy in the second game of the back-to-back, but on the road against Columbus, a really desperate Blue Jackets team that is trying to finally end this playoff-less streak that they've been on. That's a really talented team that, for whatever reason, just seems to be a tough matchup for Carolina. So I'm not reading too much into that other than just concerned that might be our first-round matchup. Because, again, and this might be something that gets clipped later, and I look silly for it, but I look at the Bruins, I look at the Red Wings, I look at the Senators, Philly and Washington, who even have an outside shot of getting in. None of those teams particularly scare me. And neither the Blue Jackets shouldn't either, but for some reason, those matchups, that they always seem to be a little bit of a roller coaster for the Canes. So shout out to them, though. Obviously they have Don Waddell, our former GM, who really helped right the ship here. So even though they're not the team I want to see, that they are the team. If there's a team outside of Carolina in the East that I'm pulling for, I think that fan base deserves it. For how long they've been out of it, they still show up. Not that it should matter. Their alternative jerseys, the blue ones with the white circle with the cannon inside of it, I think those jerseys are sick. But then you move on to Pittsburgh, and that to me felt like a game that went from being like two boxers kind of feeling each other out to just trading haymakers. But I think we probably saw Pittsburgh's fastball in that game. I think what the Penguins have done this year is truly admirable. I think the game needs Crosby in the playoffs, and Malkin too, for that matter. So I'm happy that they've been able to do what they do. I think Dan Muse probably gets my Coach of the Year vote, with all due respect to Lindy Ruff and really Rod Brind'Amour, who, quick sidebar, and all of the predictions I'm seeing from all the talking heads out there, he's not in the top 5. I don't understand how Brind'Amour isn't at least getting Jack Adams votes. But we're going to get on a side tangent about disrespect to our team in our area if we go too far into that. But Dan Muse has my vote for coach of the year right now. I think it's great for the city of Pittsburgh. I think it's great for hockey that Crosby and Malkin look like they're going to get at least one more run at the playoffs. And who knows, you put guys like that in must-win situations. Sometimes magic happens. Hopefully not at our expense, though. So distance created, a lot of stuff for the team to study up on, and some big games coming up. All in all, though, Canes fans, I think that there's a lot that we should, at this point in the year, just try to rally behind the guys. I know goaltending has become a question mark for this team. For the most part, I have faith that one of them is going to figure it out. I think both goalies have shown, whether it's Bussy having what seems like maybe a little bit of coming back down to earth, and Freddie having a little bit more of, okay, this is the Freddie Anderson that we've seen before. You can't write off a goaltender based on a 3 to 5 game stretch. You just can't. I'll be really curious to see what Bussy does the rest of the way. Anderson has been in this league for so long that if he goes through a slump, he's been there, done that. I'll get my game right. He knows things to do, whether it's at practice or at home, to kind of right the ship. This is Bussy's first real experience with having an extended dip in play, and not having the entire fan base just wrapped around his fingers. So I'll be really curious to see how he bounces back from this. But that about wraps it up. A little bit of a shorter episode, my first ever solo one, and I wanted to take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to Sam for giving me the opportunity to do this, to you, the fans, for listening. If I can get a little sappy for a second, I think I hide it pretty good, but I do have a speech impediment. I have a stutter. And I bring this up only because I know through talking to Sam about how, we try to keep this a very friendly show. Maybe you catch me sometimes catching myself almost cussing. Like, I think I referred to Craig Berube as a tough son of a gun. I don't think I've ever said son of a gun in my life. But this has been a lot of fun. This is something that I never really saw myself doing. I've listened to, I was a listener to the Caniac Report before I started doing this, big into like Steve Dangle and Chicklets, all those kind of things. So I've always wanted to try, but was always pretty nervous about just the work it took. I'm very fortunate that this opportunity came, and Sam and his former partner Sam just absolutely laid the groundwork for this, and I'm honored that I get to help keep this going. But I just wanted to bring it up, man, in case maybe there's a kid out there, or if you know somebody who has a speech impediment, to tell them that you can get better at it, whether it's through therapy, just putting yourself out there in uncomfortable situations where you have to rely on your voice. I know it's something that I've always struggled with, things like, making phone calls, stuff like that. It's made me very nervous, but I can tell anyone who deals with that doing things like this, it's so good for your confidence. And it shows you that even though, sometimes it's tough, maybe y'all didn't notice it about me and now you might actually pick it up, but don't let it be the reason you don't try things, man. And I wanted to make sure that on my first solo episode, especially after doing this now for almost an entire season, that I made a point to say this. But again, quicker episode. Sam is taking a well-deserved vacation. He should be back for the next episode, travel provided. But if not, I'll be here, and we will see you guys next time.